Welcome, welcome everyone. This is Leading in a Crisis, our virtual summit, actionable business and HR strategies for navigating crisis and change, sponsored by Turnkey Coaching and Development Solutions. And today I am thrilled to have as our guest expert, Karen Lukanovich, Olympian, MBA, certified professional coach, and founder of Summit to Summit Coaching. Hello, Karen.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here with us. We're excited to hear your topic on transforming your goals into action.
Well, thank you so much, Anissa, and the wonderful team at Turnkey Coaching Solutions, as well as your fabulous partners and sponsors and all of our attendees. Thank you very much for being here today.
Yes, indeed. Thank you guys for joining us. This is going to be a little bit different. Our talk today is transforming your goals into action. Power up clarity and confidence during disruptive times. So I want to say thank you to our sponsor as we begin, David Whitmarsh and the Whitmarsh Consulting Group, super talented group of multi-channel marketing experts that really specialize in pivoting a marketing strategy, pivoting a marketing communication, which they've had to do a lot of for their clients during COVID-19 and this pandemic. So reach out to David if you or your team would benefit from taking a peek at your marketing strategy and changing it up. And I also want to say thank you to Insperity, HR that makes a difference. Insperity sponsored our Leading in a Crisis Summit. And when I went back and I said, would you put something together to, I don't know, support our listeners, our HR professionals that will join us for this summit and the conversations that we'll be having. And they thought about it and they put together an HR budget analysis, a confidential report, and one-on-one debrief. Let me kind of explain what this is. It's a pretty cool deal, actually. You're going to be able to gain insight into the real cost burden of being an employer, especially during this time, as well as identify the costs associated over the life cycle of your employees, more specifically over the life cycle of your employees now, and now that we're having to throw our HR budgets out the window, what that really means for your organization. You're going to be able to compare your HR strategy and budget against what other successful organizations are doing. And at the end of that, you'll have greater clarity and greater speed of delivery on your new rendition of your new HR budget. If that is supportive, don't hesitate to reach out and take advantage of that. That's at turnkeycoachingsolutions.net/HR report. Now I want to say thank you to our internal team of crisis management experts and strategic planning experts. Our facilitators have put together a data-driven crisis strategy and pivot strategic planning program. It's checks the 27 challenges that all organizations will face throughout every new growth cycle that an organization has. And it compares it against some of the crisis and pivot opportunities that your organization may be going through to produce an aligned strategy and a facilitated process that gets your team all rowing in the same direction towards business growth, business resilience, and I'll call it the new normal, but we haven't hit any kind of new normal yet, right? So that could be a while. So reach out to me if you have if you're curious about that, or if your team has a need to pivot. I'm at 281-469-4244. A little bit about me. My name is Anissa, and I am the CEO of Turnkey Coaching and Development Solutions, founded Turnkey in 2004 with the intention of being a single point solution for enterprise learning and development solutions. We have contractors, coaches, trainers, management consultants in every major metropolitan area in the U.S. and in key hubs globally. And this Leading in a Crisis Summit is now going to go on every Wednesday and Thursday through June 2020. We've had topics around managing a remote workforce, to managing chaos, to crisis management. And today it's all about accomplishing your goals even during disruptive times, which is why I'm just thrilled to have this opportunity to introduce you to Karen. Karen she brings literally 25 years of of what she calls curated experiences, from being an Olympian to being a small business owner, manufacturing and distribution. I went and looked it up, Karen. Karen co-founded Simon River Sports, which was a leading manufacturer and distributor of high-performance composite racing kayaks and canoes in North America. And if the timeline was correct, she did that for a decade. And on top of that, her certifications are just nonstop. So that means she's a lifelong learner. She is certified as a high performance sports coach. She's also certified as a professional coach, and she earned her MBA from Concordia University and the MBA specialty was entrepreneurial studies. So there's so much more that I could continue on about Karen. But Karen, I want to stop sharing my screen for a moment. I want you to share with us a little about you, what we're going to learn today, and take it away. Uh-oh, I can't hear you.
Got it. Yeah, first thing, unmute the mic.
Perfect.
Thank you very much, Anissa. That was a lovely introduction. Well, today, one of my passionate topics is to talk around how we transform our goals, our ideas about what we want to achieve, and actually work toward making them happen. So today's talk is to really help us refocus ourselves during disruption on the things that we can control. And the process of goal setting and transforming your goals into an action plan is a great way to be able to get clarity, feel that we're in control of things that we can do and can move toward changing and acting upon. And this is particularly important when we're facing these kind of disruptive changes going on in our environment for so many companies and small business owners right now. Yeah. So I felt that really compelled to bring that forward. And I'm hoping that the outcome will be for our attendees as simple, well, to visualize a fairly simple approach and asking themselves the right questions that will lead them to starting with a plan that can then be built upon as we work toward putting our strategies into action.
Perfect. I think many of us, as you're getting your screen ready, I think many of us have realized that our goals have taken a bit of a back seat as we had to pivot and shift and respond to the crisis. And so even the word goals recently has gotten me into, oh, wait, what were those goals again? It's time to relook at those. So I'm glad you're bringing this up today.
Yes, because goals is how we're going to achieve what we're putting forth in our business planning and in our new strategies. Okay, so I'll get going. I wanted to start today by bringing forth this thought for reflection that we are living in a volatile, ambiguous, complex, and uncertain world. This is a US military term. It's in an acronym, VACU, and it does have implications for leadership because there's no question that if there's any time right now that's VACU, it's right now. And the implications for leadership also flow through into the way that we're going to approach our goal setting and our planning and our actioning going forward. So what are some of the key things right off the top about implications for leadership is being adaptable, adaptability, preparing to shift our mindsets from set outcomes and to think of all possibilities and opportunities in a challenging environment, and also to be flexible and creative. So we need to look at preparing for as many what-if scenarios and challenges as much as possible as we're beginning these new journeys and working toward these new plans. Now, this is a wonderful quote. It's from a blog, May blog, posted by Marnie McBean. She's a 4-time Olympic medalist. She's chef de mission for the Canadian Olympic team for Tokyo 2020. This is Marnie speaking to athletes that have just learned that they have another year, hopefully another year, to wait until their Olympic plans kick in. So, quote, I learned way more from how I faced the challenge of chaos and change than anything else. And now instead of Olympic prep, I'm talking about maintaining focus when the plan you had went out the window. Your destination may be the same, but the path to get there is going to be different. Don't just accept the changes, begin anticipating them. Change or be changed. Envision your new path. Let it be simple at first, fill it out as things progress. Let it be simple at first, fill it out as things progress. That's really important. We need to get moving. So I really wanted to come up with a model that reflected all of my experiences, what I've learned, and how I think I can bring the concept of goal setting in a structure that's easy to visualize for everyone. So this is what I came up with. And at the very top, so this is a house. It's the structure is a house. And you can imagine that your goals fit into this house. And at the very top, we have the roof. And if you want to grab a pen and piece of paper, you could follow along and jot down some of your thoughts. So at the top, you have your dream goal that covers everything, encompasses the house, your big why, and it reflects your vision, your purpose, and your values. Next is your end goals, your long-term goals that are the tangible or the concretization of your vision. Okay, so your big what. And for an example, that could be, I want to make the Olympic team, or I want to be a market leader in our field, or I want to expand. And okay, so it's what you want to achieve, the big what. Then we need to have in place, the next level down, we need to have the performance goals. Those are what you will deliver. That will help you measure your progress and make sure that you're going in the right direction to hit the big one, the big kahuna goal. So if in the case of an athlete, if their long-term goal is to make an Olympic team, then their process goals will be, or their performance goals will be making the national team, how they perform at world championships, being able to qualify, and so on and so forth. So there's definite milestones, performance milestones that are mid-range goals. And those are 99% in your control. Now, the higher level goals, the end goals, the long-term goals, and your dream goals are not as controllable because things can happen. But the performance goals and our process goals are controllable, and that's where we need to focus. And so where I'm going to focus for the rest of the talk really is going to be here on the foundation, which are your process goals. And that's the work that needs to be done to reach the performance goals, the end goals, the higher level goals, okay? And that really encompasses what tasks need to be done, what actions need to be taken, and simply they are also called SMART goals. That's an acronym I'll go through quickly. I'm sure many of you have heard this before. And they really are 100% in your control. As we work on defining those, they become our action plan. So this is really where, if I look at, say, the glamour, the non-glamour stuff. So what we see is a successful company reaching a certain pinnacle of success, or an athlete reaching a certain pinnacle of success. But the majority of the work has been done in a not very glamorous way in the foundation, in the basement that's supporting, the first and second floors of the house. So I really want to bring that idea forward, okay? So shorter term.
I was going to say, in business, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead, please.
In another model, we'll refer to these as our leading goals and our lag goals. Our lag goals are, as you mentioned, one of the lagging goals is to make the Olympics or to make the national team. But not goals, but leading measures and lag measures. The leading measures are how many, am I hitting my calorie count if you're an athlete, or am I hitting my sales calls if you're a salesperson, or did I send out enough sales messages, or whatever it is. And so this foundation here, the action plan, is often where it's at.
Yeah. That's where all the hard work comes into play so that we can achieve the higher level goals for ourselves. And yeah, it's not the glamour stuff, but it has to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much. That was really nice way of, so if you have a pen and paper, you might want to jot down, you know, think of a long-term goal that's so important to you that serves your dream goal. Maybe jot down a performance goal that you need to accomplish in order to get there. And then a couple of process goals, a couple of things, you know, as we're working through this. And just before I move ahead, the blue shaded arrow coming down is really to bring our attention to the alignment that's necessary from our higher level goals all the way down to our process goals, and our actions, the tasks we do, and then the feedback loop coming back up again. So those two things are really important. We need alignment and we need the feedback to keep things moving together and in the same direction. So those arrows are to show that. So before I move ahead, I just wanted to talk a little bit about high-level goals and the importance of inspiration and alignment. So we have our dream goals, and the dream goals actually serve not only to top the high-level goals of the end and the performance goals, but also it's that vision that ignites the action that reminds us when we're in the weeds doing the process goals, the tasks, and a lot of times it's not the most fun stuff, but it's the work that needs to get done. But we need to have a reminder. We need to remember why we're doing this and what's in. And so the dream, when I say it tails, it's something that needs to be communicated and shared on an ongoing basis so that we are always feeling that inspiration, even when we're doing some of the stuff that's really not the most fun or challenging or exciting. Okay, so it's about the vision igniting the action, and then how much are we willing to invest in the process? So the more we're inspired, the more we're reminded of why we're doing what we're doing, the more we're going to put the effort in. Well, that's important. And alignment I've spoken about already quite a bit. So you need the feedback loop always coming back into the leadership to make sure that we're aligning our teams and our actions and plans. So I'm gonna now, because I did requests from some of my friends in sport and even family members to give me some of their guiding principles around goal achievement. And Mark, who's a 3-time Olympian and a third generation Olympian, third generation, so family, grew up in this environment of excellence. He said, I find one of the most successful ways of transforming my goals into action is simply to write them down. So having your goals regularly visible means you are much more accountable and therefore likely to follow through with the actions you need to achieve them. So again, you know, if you're following along in our talk and you've written down a few things, that's a good thing. And we can expand on that and keep putting things down on paper. That's where we need to start and continue to do that work, whether we're solopreneur, self-employed, running a small business, or in a large corporation. Again, the process goals, we'll just talk a little bit more about goals in general. Process goals are the important things, are the tasks we take action on, and they're short term. Goals need to be stated in the positive. So we don't want to tell ourselves, my 1-year goal is not to lose 30% of my sales. That's a negative approach. Our goal needs to be, I want to finish the year maintaining, say, 80% of my sales revenue, maintaining, not losing 20. So you get the idea on that. Stated in the present tense, that helps our brain assume success. So I have reached, I have completed. So it's how we put that, how we state it to ourselves. That's important. And the ownership of goals. Actually, I was thinking about this just this morning, and I realized that the higher level goals, everyone needs to have ownership of those, because that is what is going to keep everyone rallying around and being inspired to achieve where we as a company are going, to help us navigate through really rough times, to help us stay the course if we are self-employed and it gets rough. So we do need to, and everyone who's supporting us need to share in the ownership of the high level goals. And of course, with the task related goals, then we link those to the higher level goals, but we do have to have clarity around who's responsible for what. And I'm wondering, are there any questions at this point? Any thoughts? Any?
And I think, well, I think that for me, it is reminding me of the elements that are important. The breakdown of the high level goal, the big dream, and then the performance goals, and then all the way down to the process goals. And then these very, very specific things. Staying positive is essential. You know, I've always believed we get what we focus upon, what we put our attention upon expands. And having it written out, it's amazing what what I forget so easily when I am taken away from just the fact of writing your goals down means you're more likely to accomplish them.
Yes. And then it serves as a reminder to us that why we're doing this day in, day out. As you can imagine, any high performer in any field, we do need those reminders, whether we're an athlete or an entrepreneur or a professional in any area, and we care about our performance. And we all have struggle around motivation, and but we got to keep on keeping on. So just to circle back to the less glamorous work that needs to be done on the process goals, SMART is a nice acronym. It's something that's been out there. It's not something I came up with, of course. It's a very well known model for goal achievement. S is specific, so the more specific your goal is, the easier to achieve. Measurable, know when you have achieved your goal. This also relates to your performance goals as well. Adjustable, how will the action plan be adjustable? Very important, because things do need to be tweaked and changed as we go along. Realistic, are your goals realistic, but at the same time challenging and inspirational? Very important. And time bounded. So we need to put in deadlines, and we need to have a timeline. We need to, that's part of our plan. So those are things, that's a checklist that we need to run through when we start putting down goals and actually looking at, okay, how are we going to set ourselves up for success in achieving that? And I'd like to talk here a little bit about motivation. So you may want to take your pencil and your paper again, and going back to some of the goals that you've written down, and maybe even put this in the chat. Be interesting to see. So why do you want this goal? What's important to you about achieving the goal? And then you need to ask yourself a bunch of questions. So what are all the benefits of achieving the goal? Intrinsic and extrinsic. And that means intrinsic goals is why I want it for myself inside. And the extrinsic goals are the material rewards. So I'm going to have a higher salary. I'm going to grow my business. I'm going to win an award. I'm going to win a gold medal, like so. Those are extrinsic rewards. Intrinsic is what's motivating us inside, our purpose. And so being clear on that, what is our big benefit? The big benefit, you can write that down. Even if it's just off the top of your head, often that's the best way. Just write it down. What are other areas that will benefit from achieving this goal? Okay, so important to know.
Other areas.
So if I achieve this goal, it will satisfy. So if we look in terms of being an athlete, if I achieve the goal of becoming a better athlete, it will improve my performance at school.
Yeah. Okay.
It will, or, as a team, if we achieve this goal, then other teams will, it will benefit another team and help them achieve their goal, depending on what the goal is. So, you sort of looking at the ripple effect
Mm-hmm.
on the benefits of achieving the goal. And maybe there aren't any specifically in some cases, but maybe there are. So asking ourselves, it's a good idea because we want to know all the benefits around to help remind us and inspire us and motivate us. And it's not a bad idea to plan for rewards for accomplishment. So whether it's we're self-employed or it's a personal goal, we need to also reward ourselves when we achieve the goal. And how are we going to reward our team? Doesn't have to be monetarily, but we need to think of something that would be a reward. A little small thing is always helpful. And again, we can't forget what the pain is of why we want of achieving the goal. It's sort of the other side. It's not really, in a way, I guess it's sort of relating to motivation, but there's always the pain of achieving a goal. It's the sacrifice. So what are the sacrifices of achieving a certain goal? For a company, it may be going in a new pathway would require laying some people off, which is a painful decision to have to make.
Mm-hmm.
Or it may require shrinking your budget. So asking of people not to lay them off, but maybe to reduce their income or their hours working, those kind of things. Or as an athlete, what's the pain? It's the sacrifice of not seeing your friends, not going out to parties, not being a normal teenager and being able to do, there's a lot of things that come with and does affect our motivation. So we have to, it's helpful to know what those things are.
To that question, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
That question is asking what's, in essence, what is the pain that I'm aiming to avoid, but also what is, what's the sacrifice or what's the pain that I may have to endure to accomplish this. So
yes.
Okay, identifying clearly the frankly the things that could cause me to fail ahead of time.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And of course we do, I think on the next slide, I talk about the challenges and obstacles because there always are, but pain is a little bit deeper than a challenge or an obstacle, right? It's so it could be something really, painful that we're having to endure, but it's important in order to achieve the goal. There's always challenges and obstacles. And so moving into, and that sets me up nicely for this next slide. And I'd like to quote my father, who is my hero and is a 3-time Olympian, twice as a coach and once as an athlete. He actually was an Olympian the year I was born. And he's an Order of Canada recipient, which is the highest civilian honor in Canada. So I figured he'd have something interesting to say about.
Something good to say about goals.
Yeah, about it. And he gave me a bunch of stuff, but I really, I keep talking about effort and inspiration. It is important. And so I did take this clip out of, because he gave me, everyone gave me some lovely thoughts, not just one, but time restricted. So he says, goals should be realistic but achievable with effort. If no or low effort is required, your goal is not inspirational or engaging enough. So again, it's always finding that fine line between being realistic, having a functional goal, but also inspiring us and engaging us to achieve it. So it's a bit of an art form, but we always have to start somewhere. And we are allowed to adjust as we go along. I think that's just super important to say. So remember when I opened up by saying, we're in a highly changeable environment. We have to step away from set outcomes. So we need to be willing to be flexible and adaptable, right? So in this context with goal levels, you can actually give yourself multiple targets. You can look at minimum target extraordinary, for example. So it's not necessarily setting one, overall performance, say, goal, but give yourself some variety, something that gives you, what you need to work with, but also is realistic and functional. Because if it's not achievable, you're going to have a lot of upset people in your business, in your company, demotivated sales staff, and demotivate yourself. So it's very important that we pay attention to this and be willing to tweak it as we go along. We need to test our assumptions. We need to be open to input. And that particularly means if we have a sales force, well, we need to sit down with our sales force and we need to be open with them, because we need to rely on their expertise to tell us what they can and cannot, right? So with your high performers, we need to work together. This is a team thing.
Mm-hmm.
Challenges, of course, what are they? Make a list, be realistic and honest. Off come the rose-tinted glasses. And then I think that's an important question to always ask ourselves is, what is the benefit of not completing the goal? It's sort of like the opportunity cost of not completing the goal. And I know people look at that and they're sort of confused. Well, what do you mean? Well, there's always the benefit of not completing the goal, because maybe completing the goal means having to do certain things that aren't fun or could affect relationships, right? I mean, think about on a personal level, there could be a goal that we decide to take on that's going to impact relationships with family members or relationships with team members in our organization. So understanding what will happen if we don't complete the goal, and is there a benefit associated with that? Because if people aren't really working toward completing a goal, it may be because there's an unseen benefit of not completing a goal that leadership didn't think of. So it's just a matter of keeping that in your toolkit of thinking. Right? So,
are you recommending these are questions that someone is to write down, process through?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because actually these are all questions that I have on a goal setting template.
Oh, great.
So at the end of the talk, I do bring that forward, that for anyone that would like this sort of goal setting template on a piece of paper so that they can go through it and really start reflecting and working on all these things, it's available. You just need to email me and I'll be happy to send it to you. Okay. So yeah. So whether you're following along right now or not, it doesn't matter, because it's just, again, this is really taking a coaching approach to ourselves or our team by asking a lot of questions. And that's what we do as coaches. We ask a lot of questions and we want to create awareness. We want to create awareness not through telling and imposing and advising. We want to do it through bringing that awareness forward and having them, the coachees, the individuals, your team, the athletes, through their own commitment and their own wanting to master the process, that they are fully engaged. And that's the art as leaders, as coaches. So it's about, taking a coaching approach as well and asking the questions of yourself, of your team. And this is a really important one to be asking. So whether it's ourself or our team, our employees, our athletes, how will you show up to achieve your goals? And we know our teams. We know whether it's athletes we coach, we know ourselves, we know the folks that report to us, we know, we should know the individuals. And so it's an important question, because how we show up every day to achieve our goals is key to successfully achieving our goals. We've talked a lot about the process. So we do need to ask ourselves, and these questions are also on the template. How will you need to be different? How do you need to look at or do things differently? Whether we're a CEO or a manager of a department or an entrepreneur, how do we need to look at or do things differently? Start doing something, stop doing something, and then the big star at the bottom, I will need to be someone who is, and fill in the blank. Because this is a time for personal reflection and personal development. When we're in a crisis, we need to dig deep. No question. We're asking that of our athletes. We're asking that of our employees. We're asking that of ourselves. to navigate through disruption, how do I need to show up every day? How do I need to show up every day to bring my best game plan forward, to be able to do the work that needs to be done to achieve the goals,
Can you
to
share,
complete the tasks?
would you share an example of that? You know, what's an answer to how will I need to be different, or how do I need to show up? I mean, I think I
Right.
have an idea, but will you
Okay.
share some examples?
Well, sure. I can give you an example both in the world of sport, for example, because I coach and I've also led many teams and in sales and so on in marketing and sales. Um, so, for example, we know we have a job to do, and we know that our individual athletes have their goals. They have their goals. They have their tasks. And as a coach, here's the program. This is what we're going to be working on. Here are the timelines, and so on and so forth. How they show up every day will determine whether or not they're actually going to be able to reach those goals or not. So if the athletes have committed to achieving certain things, they've signed up for it, we need a certain level of quality in the product. I'm kind of bringing examples from both corporate and sport right now. So it could be, I've set a goal, and that's going to be a bit of a reach for us, but we want a new product on the market. We need a certain level of quality. We need it to be X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. So we've given that team their marching orders. They've agreed. Everyone's agreed. This is what we're all on target for. Now I look at an athlete. We have our meetings. This is their goal. This is what's been agreed to. Everyone's on side. Okay, so we go. Now, if all of a sudden I'm seeing athletes showing up every day, or missing practice, or exhausted, or negative, or, behaviorally affecting other people on the team, talking in negative ways. In other words, either acting out of character, something's going on, something that me as a coach or as a leader of the team right away will wonder, okay, that individual is not showing up every day to help them achieve their goals. If I'm an athlete and I've said I want to win provincials and I'm not showing up for practice consistently, well, you're not going to achieve your goal. So as a coach, you need to ask the question again of that individual. I thought we were aligned. Do we need to readjust? Maybe something has changed. Now in a company, the goal could be a corporate goal. So it's really important that if the individual is not showing up to be the person that they need to be in order to engineer to really produce the product or the service that we need in order to move forward, to deliver the quality that we need, to deliver the service that we need. If they're not showing up to do that, then it's a problem.
So in essence, what I'm hearing, and this is kind of a question and a statement. So I think what I'm hearing is, one of the things you shared with us earlier is there are process goals. So if someone is wanting to innovate a new product line, they have certain, we have to have an ideation meeting around that. Then we have to do a business analysis, and then we have to do a competitive, right? Those are small micro goals. And in order to do that, there's a certain process. But I'm also, in this case, it's part of the process goal to also say, how are we going to show up? That's a mindset.
Yes.
Whether I'm committed, I'm going to be resilient. I know that this is going to take a sprint, or whatever it is.
Yes, because we have folks that are negatively oriented, folks that are positively oriented, folks that may feel anxious. There could be all sorts of things going on. So as leaders, we need to be attuned not only to how we're going to show up every day, but how our team will. I mean, if I need to be a leader who is calm right now in the middle of chaos, I don't want to show up anxious and high strung every day at work. I mean, that could be one of the things, one of the ways that I now need to show up as a leader. It may not, it's looking at the whole thing. How do I need to show up in my behavior, in my modeling of how I want everyone else to show up? Yeah. And keeping an eye on knowing how we're all going to have to, what we need to bring forward. Right now, we need to bring our A game forward.
Yeah.
Everybody, okay? Like, to get through the kind of challenges that so many of us are facing right now, we need to dig deep and we need to bring that A game forward.
Yeah.
So what does that look like for you? And if you're looking at pivoting your plan or changing the way that you're doing things, that's tough, right? It's asking people to change maybe something that they've been doing a certain way for 10 years. And now we're asking them to change that. So we have to pay attention, you know, to the impact that these are going to have on our employees. We need to show up how we want everyone else to show up, model the way, and really emphasize that we got it well. And I'll get into it a little bit more as we go ahead. But yeah, you know, this is who we need to be. Executive network person, you know, kind of, right? So
I'm going to read what Dave said. He says, "This is great. Thanks, Karen. Accountability. We all need to hold each other accountable for success. The decline should not be an option."
Right.
Exactly. And then he says, "I have always said only the mediocre show up at their best."
You know, it's really interesting because I've coached, you know, and my father, I mean, there's a lot of, and I have lots of friends that have coached for a lot of years. And it's really those that show up every day to do the work, not the super talents that actually often end up being highly successful. So I'm just going to plant that seed right there. Okay. It does take work. So again, just following along with our little coaching approach and the planning for success. I don't need to spend a lot of time here, but of course we need to look at what resources are available, what resources we will need. Any strategic planning hinges on this, whether you're an athlete or a corporate leader. We really need to have clarity around this, because as we start looking at pivoting plans and changing plans, what does that imply in terms of people, things, new additional finance, or, you know, do we need to find more financing, or do we need to redefine our budget, what maybe new technology we need, administrative, all of that. So clarity around resources is vital, and that's part of your vetting of your goal process as you're building out your task and your action plan. So some of your tasks will be around securing additional resources, correct? Okay, so we're sort of coming toward the end. And so, of course, as we are moving through these different steps, we get to a point where, and of course, the beginning of this talk was to leave you with a sense at the end of the time together that you have a way, a means, a process through goal setting and actioning to increase your clarity and your confidence. And so I want to just circle back to that and put this up. So this is sort of a checklist. And if we've gone through all these steps, and these are things that are, it's thing that is constantly repeated as you're doing your different strategic planning, right? And it can become a loop that you automatically go through. But again, you've got to write it down on paper as part of your task and actioning and so on. But so deadlines and timelines are established and committed to. Now that's going to help with your clarity and your confidence. Your tasks with short-term actions defined. So 1 to 2 weeks. In fact, that was another quote from my dad. Break down your tasks, break down your process goals, even into shorter 1 week sort of sub goals. Okay, so tasks, 1 to 2 weeks. What is the first action you're going to take? When are you going to start? Write it down. Maybe you're already starting, but again, it's an ongoing process. And if we haven't, and we've been feeling stuck up till now because of everything that's so overwhelming, then you can ask yourself, what's the very first action we're going to take? And when am I going to do that? Tomorrow? When? Write it down, commit to it. And of course, we need a mechanism to review the plan on an ongoing basis. Company I worked for in tech, we were highly successful. We grew, it was crazy, tremendous high growth. And we had a weekly meeting. All of the executives in the company would get together every Monday, like clockwork. And we had a rolling action plan. We all knew that our feet were going to be held to the fire by our president. And everything was always left on the rolling action plan. So everyone could see that there were still actions that hadn't been taken care of that were sitting there for 2 months by XYZ VP. So there's ways of being able to hold ourselves accountable without having to point fingers necessarily. But in other words, ways that you can engage your leaders to ensure that they're doing what they committed to. And it also teaches us a lesson because maybe we're overcommitting. So it teaches us as leaders to sharpen up, our ways of being able to commit to actions and being held accountable and reporting to not only our boss, but our peers as to where we are in the process. And I found that unbelievably helpful. We were in such a high growth environment that I don't know how we would have actually accomplished what we did without those weekly plans. And they don't have to be long. If you've got everything written down, you can get through it pretty quick. A mechanism, so we talked about that. What does that look like? And of course, that mechanism or that meeting is going to help you bring the feedback loops into the conversation, into the review. You need to have that. We need to, constantly adjust and refine. And so you need those. And I'm sure every leader on this call or entrepreneur will agree with that. Okay, so
about timelines. A lot of folks will set a timeline or to be a deadline and miss it, and then miss it again, and then miss it again. At some point, it can be demotivating. How
right.
do people effectively manage?
I think that, yeah, that's a good question. And I honestly feel that goes back to setting functional goals for ourselves. So somehow along the way, there was an assumption that achieving that task was going to take a lot less time than it actually took. And that happens in engineering really can happen quite regularly, right? Some companies, engineering firms, they even joke about it. You're going to get half the features at double the budget and double the amount of time. They call it the 2.5 rule. So I think that through regular monitoring, this goes back to the functionality of our goals. So it's just important that, well, number one, it's okay to change our goals. Sometimes we set goals that may not have been the best goals and may take us down kind of as we go along, realizing, oh, you know what, this is sort of taking me down a path that I wasn't anticipating. Or, we realize that maybe that wasn't necessarily the right way to go, but sometimes we're very stubborn about letting go of things. And letting go can save you. It can save you from a lot of trouble. So we also have to be sensitive to what's the word I'm looking at? Modifying goals or abandoning them altogether if we need be, right? Like it's this one saying you have to be sort of flexible. But if I was in a situation as a team leader and we were consistently not meeting a target, I would say that there was something in the prototyping, somewhere in the initial feasibility study of the project or that particular task that something was missed. And then we need to talk to the individual, what's going on, right? They're the ones that are trying to get it done. So if there's something blocking, some challenge that we as leaders that didn't foresee, then that's going to come to the fore as well. And we need to gently just make the changes and not point fingers at anybody, right? It happens. Mm-hmm. By bringing everyone into the process, then it's not a negative. It doesn't become a negative thing or demotivator. It becomes, okay, so we're not there yet and we're learning that, okay, we need to adjust for this. So it takes the pressure off and the feeling of not of the negativity around it, where it might be something completely out of our control or we just didn't do a good job of anticipating certain things. Might have been, the leadership, all kinds of things can be in there. And that's why a few things to think about here. So Sue Holloway, another wonderful athlete, she was a partner of mine on 2 Olympic teams. We were teammates together. She's an Olympian in both cross-country skiing and kayak sprinter, 4-time Olympian, 2-time Olympic medalist. So someone who, and is in the Canadian Sport Hall of Fame. I asked her for her contribution, and she had to say, there is no magic to success. Surround yourself with an awesome team that believes in you and the project. Give it everything you've got. In the end, it's the journey, not the result, that matters. So make it a good ride.
Great.
So what really matters, it's the journey. I mean, yes, we have goals, and the high level goals, of course, we need them to inspire us. But the day-to-day work is the journey. And that's what really matters. And it's interesting, even neuroscience research has shown us that when it comes to developing confidence, it's the journey of mastering that's the key, and not the actual achieving mastery. So it's that. So I think that, you know, this is just so important to embrace, that it's the journey, and how do we want that to look for ourselves and for our company and our teams. So we need a growth mindset. And I've talked about that the focus on the process and the power of yet. We're not there yet. We're learning. We're yet, you know, it's the yet, super important. The progress loop, this is again something from neuroscience research. It speaks to a positive inner work life. So we as leaders can help set up our team or ourselves for successful completion on a task, no matter how small. And so if we're breaking down tasks and we are paying attention, then we know we can get our people and ourselves into that positive inner work life. Okay, so that's important to learn more about that. And accountability. So owning responsibility to whatever we've said we were going to commit to. Trust, got to have trust between you and everybody involved, 2-way. And communication, 2-way. And percolating on that a little bit will bring us into our final slide and kind of wrapping things up. So I just wanted to finish off by saying that, or reflecting on what really helps leadership at all times, and not just during disruptive times, because again, coming from a sport background and an athlete, the way we train for excellence is to train everything all the time, because we do train what if scenarios. We get our race planning down to a point where we'll sit back and then we'll start planning for what if scenarios and all kinds of stuff. If something happens during the race, then we've already planned for the what if scenario. So it's the technical training, it's the practice, the ongoing practice in good times and in bad times, in chaos and in calm. So I just wanted to leave you with that. And what really matters is having that and developing those positive and growth mindsets. Mm-hmm. I think as a leader, having hope is so important, that we radiate hope, that we radiate, that we believe in our employees, that we believe in ourselves, and that we radiate gratitude. Gratitude for them, gratitude for us, that we're healthy, that we're able to steer the ship through this time right now, and be hopeful that we're going to make it through. It's going to be a rough ride, but we're going to get there. That needs to be, that's hopeful. Compassion for ourselves and for others and our clients. How are we going to serve our clients going forward in this environment? And the compassion for self and others is, if we're not compassionate with ourselves and others, we're not going to take the risks. Yeah. We're not going to try new things, because we're going to be too afraid to fail and what that might look like. So self-compassion and compassion for others is really important, especially in turbulent times, but always. Curiosity as leaders. We, more than ever, we don't know everything. So we need to leverage the power of not knowing. And when I say it's powerful, it is, because you cultivate a lot of loyalty when your people know that you don't know everything, that you're going to go to them also for their expertise and their input and knowledge and their strengths that they can bring to the table. You're in it together. right? Excuse me. Honesty, absolutely critical as a leader. Transparency and ethics, everybody knows when they have an honest and transparent leader. And that's what earns you respect and loyalty as well. And that's going to carry you through really rough times. So people are going to be willing to do the extra, right? And take the pay cut if need be, or what have you. They're going to hang in there. So develop that. We need to work toward those ways of being as leaders. And finally, adopting a coaching approach. As we as coaches know, and I know Anissa spends a lot of time working with leaders in this respect, that, you know, be open and listen and be open to learning. So I'm just wrapping up by saying that polarity is always in our work, is always at work and in our lives and the world around us. And we can see that just looking at our own lives and looking at our past lives. We have great things happening, at the same time, horrible things happening. So we know we can navigate through this.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Very good. Will you share with folks how they can get a hold of you? Oh, there it is, Karen at summittosummitcoaching.com. And oh, look, you've prepared some resources for us. Share with us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I just, you know, there's some books that I loved and wanted to throw out there. Dr. Carol Dweck, you might have heard this book. A lot of people have quoted that. It's an excellent book for both business people, athletes, teachers, all of us, really. It was really eye-opening for me. I loved it. Grit, of course, Power, Passion, and Perseverance. I think it's so important, a wonderful book. Coaching for Performance. This is just an interesting, it's a sort of helping us as leaders get some interesting ideas there. But of course, we do have wonderful coaching from Anissa's team and all of us here that are coaches that are happy to work with you. Yeah. And of course, Stephen Covey's book on 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is always helpful. And there is a wonderful website, wonderful short articles for busy people, busy leaders, and business owners on focus, motivation, and so on at the Neuroscience School. So it could just add a few more tools into our toolkit.
Excellent. Very helpful. Just want to read off a few comments. Thank you so much. This has been great. I love what Dave wrote. Don't feel bad to change to make you feel good.
Yes.
So good takeaways. My takeaway is the process is always there, but there was a piece about how you've shared about our need to be adaptable right now and reevaluate our process. But it's the blue arrows that you had on your diagram. You're going down to come up. You're going down to, you know, it's an iterative process, this pursuit of our goals right now. So very, very helpful. And I really appreciate what you've put together. And folks, if reach out to Karen at summittosummitcoaching.com. And thank you so much, Karen.
Oh, thank you so much, Anissa and Sheila and Paige and your whole team. Wonderful team.
Thank you.
And thank you for everyone for coming. I hope that you have some great takeaways, and good luck. Stay healthy.
Stay healthy. Stay healthy, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.